In my last video, I used the phrase that I'm 40, divorced, and childless. But some of you may have noticed that in the captions it said child free. I did re record that part. However, my bad editing didn't really show in the final version where it still said in the audio childless, whereas in the captions child free. But that revealed a lot to me, and I thought of recording this video to also explain how my journey from that place of lack and actually feeling that I was childless to this realization of how it became a choice for me of being child free. I think when I was growing up, I might be an anomaly in my city, in my peer group, that marriage or having a family or having kids was never a part of a conversation for me and my family. I was one of those odd ones out in my siblings and cousins where my decisions were mostly mine and were around education, career, professional life. Where do I want to live? Where do I want to travel? And where my ambitions in life would take me. And marriage or relationships were a part of the story, but never the story. In fact, when my ex wanted us to get married, I really gave into the conventional idea because that's what everybody around me was comfortable with. In fact, growing up, sometimes my parents had a hard time with me because I was one of those rebels without a cause and sometimes really opting for unconventional choices. I definitely didn't make their life any easy. But thanks to that, I did have a taste of freedom and independence in many choices, some good, some bad, and I really learned my lessons through it. However, I had been very clear with my ex before we got married that children are not a part of the equation for me, and I do not want to have kids. And at that time, with the rose eyed glasses, we went into the marriage uh, thinking that this is a very casual topic for us. As years went by, many choices changed, many circumstances changed. And at some point, many compromises later, I found myself making choices that were not mine. I found myself agreeing to things that were opposite to my values. I found myself even agreeing to have kids. And hence, fast forward to the end of the divorce period and separation, it felt like I was hit by a double whammy. A realization that some past choices of almost a decade had not gone right. On the other hand, feeling as if a certain type of future, with the biological clock ticking away, was now also knocking at my door. I scrambled for answers. I tried to look at options for freezing my eggs in Germany and India. I even tried to figure out the laws of, what are the laws governing moving eggs from one country to the other. Apparently, there aren't any. And it took quite amount of unraveling to realize that these choices were not mine. But during these years of compromises and compromising my own values, I had also let go of certain part of myself, certain part of my personality, certain part of my own choices and identity. And it took me quite some time from losing that place of lack to really coming back to myself to be that I actually did not want to have kids ever. And hence, great that I am child free and it's a choice for me. It wasn't immediate, it wasn't a very fast forward one. I'm sure I'm going to get some flack for saying all this out loud because perhaps in the South Asian context, this too is still a taboo. I hope the listeners can look at the nuance of this conversation. And if you are the kind of person who likes stories with nuance that are rooted in realities and are shaking off stigma in our cultures, then tune in to season 1 of Sono the Listening Circle, a podcast where we bring many such stories.